Arnold, let's hear it. How do you feel today after this extraordinary victory?
I feel great. I feel wonderful. And I'm very, very thankful for the opportunity.
Did you feel the same thing as the judges were saying, that in the evening you were even more fine-tuned, you were more cut than you were in the afternoon?
Well, yeah, we worked really hard. So, as you know, a lot of the bodybuilding enthusiasts and fans out there know that the day of competition is just this all-consuming process.
Right.
And it's still unfolding as the day goes on. So behind the scenes, you aren't just sitting there relaxing, but you are constantly working and trying to improve to be the best.
Right.
And everyone's just, really trying to actually find their best and bring their best to the stage. Yeah.
But it reminded me so much because when I was competing in 1980 at the Mr. Olympia in Australia, and Bill Pearl was one of the judges, and he was kind of in charge of the thing. And we all know Bill Pearl, right? A fantastic bodybuilding champion, and a lot like you do, right? I highly respected his body. But he came to me after the Mr. Olympia in the afternoon, and he said, "Arnold, you're in trouble." And they said, "Why?" He says, "You're number 3. You're third place." He says, "So you have to pull off some trick." By the evening, he says, you have to be more ripped, you have to have a better posing or something, because remember, the posing round isn't not until the evening, so you still have a shot. Well, I practiced, I tell you, I was like going crazy, because a few hours between the afternoon pre-judging and then the evening show, I posed and posed and posed and sweat out an extra 2-3 pounds, and came evening, I pulled it off and got the extra points with my posing and won the competition, won the Olympia. And this is why it reminded me yesterday, and that's why I said that yesterday. I said, can you imagine that with the posing, your posing was so dynamic and you really got the crowd moving, and the judges said, wait a minute, this guy's getting the biggest of all, we got to go and make him the winner. And here's also the best posing, and you won on the end. So I'm so happy that you were up there standing as the winner.
Oh, hey, that's a lot. There's so much that does go into the behind-the-scenes aspect of contest preparation, and as we said, as you just put out there, that you had to work and you had to continue to work and not just rest on your laurels.
Right.
And it's very, very, very important, even for the younger athletes coming up now, to hear you say that. There's an opportunity to help us improve. And that's why we definitely look to you, and thank you for just the opportunity that has come along with your accomplishment. But, and we can talk about the leading principles, we can talk about a lot of these ideas that you were the champion representative of so long ago that, really did so much in encouraging and inspiring all of the newer champions that were coming behind you. And I think that when you say what you just said, you're offering that with the deepest sincerity as an idea to help improve our sport, help us become better at what we're trying to do in the long run. So I appreciate that, I respect it, and I'm very, very thankful for it. I think the addition of actually having your posing routine counted in the points, it does a lot to improve the level of showmanship and performance quality of the show, but then it also gives newer opportunities to the athletes, that are still working and looking for clues, as to how to become better at bringing a better package to the stage that the audience can love, that can become a better package that represents our sport, and more importantly, the art form that our sport.
Right.
The love of the art, I think, is what gets introduced, in a more vivid dimension when you turn around and really start to focus on the posing.
Do you think that the bodybuilding magazines make a mistake by only writing about food intake, diet, and training, but never really mention on how to train for posing? And what kind of exercises need to be done, and what kind of things to work on? For instance, balance. I mean, how many times do we see bodybuilders going down to the kneeling pose, and then they hold on to the floor, and they go down. We talked about that they're like 85 years old or 90-year-old cripples or something like that. Oh, can you get up slowly and move over and slowly go down and slowly move over to this pose? I mean, this is a no-brainer. I mean, I can do it with 68, I would do it with 100. I mean, it is, I don't have to hold on. So what is this holding onto the floor? I mean, or should he put up a cane or walker or something like that? So those are the kind of things, I think that if magazines will write about that and say, here's how you practice posing, and here's what Kai does. Kai is known to be one of the best posers there is right now out there in the circuit, right? So you are. I mean, it's been really, no, it's true. Not just because you sit here, but it's really refreshing. So to me, I want to see in the magazines more written about how do you really practice for that? How much time do you spend on that? Why do you have a vision that you need to be different and more dynamic? And at what point is it important to have a dynamic pose? And at what point do you decide to have a graceful pose? How do you decide what music you should use? How do you use the music to your advantage? How do you make sure that the music is more powerful, is not more powerful than your posing is? And all of this kind of things. There's so many things to be discussed, and I don't see it in the magazines. So I think we have to kick some butt there, right?
And you know what? I think you propose a very interesting point. You know, that needs to be thought about and considered, largely because it does open up the way of thinking to encompass more than just sets and reps. And the idea of, well, I just need a 1-2 minute check on what my condition is to see if my body fat is low. It's more than just being able to assess body fat. It's more than, you know, the art of this experience is worth more. It's so much more valuable than just numbers on a fat caliper. You know, hey, well, I've lost 6 dress sizes. That's it. But that's not necessarily what is necessary to really speak about the art form of this experience that has allowed many of us to fall in love with this experience in the first place.
Right. Well, before I'm going to go off to my sponsorship lunch, I just want to ask you one question, and that is, how much training do you do? I mean, what does the day look like for you? I mean, do you train twice a day? Do you train once a day? Are you a person that does a lot of sets or less sets, more reps, less reps? Do you train a gigantic amount of weight or with less weight? Or what? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, you know, very interestingly enough, I think that I've been training now for nothing in comparison to how long you have, you know, and the contribution that you've made to our experience is just, you know, beyond measure. I almost feel embarrassed to even, you know, try to say in front of you, but I will say this. I have seen in my own personal experience, you know, something that has become all-consuming, you know, particularly when I would aim to try to do it in a way that would help me improve. You know, I needed to start to stretch regularly, and it became more than just the added idea of, hey, well, you know, you should stretch your hamstrings at the beginning of your training session, and maybe at the end, and that's it. But usually, living real life, a lot of times we get to the gym, we train, and once we get finished with that last set or two, okay, we have to go on with the rest of our lives. And that compartmentalized experience of training was really that 45 minutes or whatever that you did your stiff-legged deadlifts, your lying leg curls, your standing leg curls, and that's it. But in order to improve, and in order to make better mind and muscle connections, in order to be able to grow beyond my comfort zones, I found myself having to train more often, more volume, more sets, more reps, just to even get myself in the place of being able to think properly enough to start to make some effective decisions when on the gym floor, and it took more than 45 minutes to do. So when I would read these ideas, these newer concepts, when people talk about 45 minutes is all the time you should be in the gym, sometimes that was very difficult for me to make sense of some of the newer things that I was just starting to understand, working to cultivate in becoming more aware of my body and stuff, and realizing that 45 minutes wasn't enough time for me to even become more aware of stretching, become more neurologically aware of my muscle. So to answer your question, I think that ultimately I started training 2 to 3 times a day. I remember looking at a lot of the periodicals that presented, you know, the staggered sex ideas, a lot of the stuff that you pioneered years in advance. You talked about, you know, earlier on. I mean, we stand on the shoulders of the accomplishments that you were able to make that helped us become better athletes. So to answer your question, yeah, man, I've trained very, very, very often.
Do a lot of sets. When you
Yes.
say a lot of sets, how many sets would you say for, let's say, your back? I mean, you have a huge back. It needs a lot of attention, obviously, having a big back like that. So how many sets would you say you do?
I remember hearing you do an interview some years back, and I heard you recount one of the experiences that you talked about when you trained with,
Franco?
no, not Franco.
Sergio Viva?
Sergio.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that I took away from that experience was, wow, you know what? The work ethic that you talked about, you know, is something that I saw as a common thread in all of the people that I looked up to that were doing something that was of significant value with a very valuable end result. You know, the Iris Kyles of the world, I realized, wow, there's a thread of commonality in the ability to do the work and to be able to work so hard because you've fallen in love with the work that it doesn't become work at all.
Right.
You know, it's
Passion, exactly.